everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Journey to Purpose. With me today, I have the wonderful Randall Ian Thames. He is the founder, CEO, managing partner of the Inspirit Institute. Randall, welcome.
Philippa, thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here and to be a part of what you're doing. It's so important, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thank you. So my first very easy question is, where in the world are you currently?
Yeah, it's like, where in the world is Waldo? I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but
We have Wally in the UK.
yeah,
Where's Wally? Yeah.
yeah. So currently, I am in my office here in just outside of Washington, D.C. in the U.S.
Oh,
And so that's
oh.
where I reside. But I always, when people ask me that, it's interesting because I really could be anywhere. And I am where I am needed. And so that can span really anywhere in the world. And which we do travel. But today I'm just out of Washington, D.C. in a small town called Ellicott City, Maryland. So that's where we are
Ah.
today.
I don't know it, but I did work in Reston in Virginia. So that part of Washington, I didn't get around everything when I was working there, but it's a lovely part of the world, that little Washington circle, isn't it, as I kind of called it.
Yeah. They call it the DMV, which is DC, Maryland, Virginia.
That's it.
And it's interesting because you can be maybe 15 or 20 miles, but it will take you several hours to get from
Oh,
one part
yes.
to the other.
That I
Almost
remember
like
as
the other
well.
party tour.
Well, it's still wonderful. Right. So the Inspirit Institute,
Yes.
tell me about that. How did the name come about? What is that about?
So fun fact. There's two versions of it. So the core word, in spirit, one of the things that as I was working, and I was working in corporate America for 38 years, and I had my daughter, who is now 24. At the time, she was about 10 years old, and she wrote this really cute. And as a matter of fact, it's up on the wall now. She said, "My dad inspires." And that's like the thing that I know about my dad. And as I was looking about that, I found that that was like a common theme. When I did self-assessments, a lot of people said, you have an inspiring nature about you. Speaking of me. So in spirit, the derivative or the core word is inspire. My initials RIT. So inspire RIT. That's part of it. The other part is I feel like we get what I call our superpower or super purpose power inside in our own spirit. And that's where it resides. So as I wanted to create an environment through the Institute, which is a hub or repository where you can kind of workshop that blessing, that spirit, that superpower that's in you. And you can be inspired by RIT.
Love that. Let you get a bit of yourself in there, but also a bit of others in there.
Yeah.
That's a very clever name.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what do you do? Obviously, inspiration is a big part of it. But what is the focus of your work?
So I'll put it in a way, in my book, Rise to the Role, I wrote this, it's the beginning, it's the opening of it. It's inspired insight will ignite the light. Inspired insight will ignite the light. Essentially, Inspirit Institute is a place where you can get perspectives, data, and insights. So we create all of those insights through assessments, through formal assessments, 360, a Hogan, all of those things that are the psychometric assessments, data gathering. So you get those insights, you get the data. And then what we want to do is we want to inspire you to take that information and what we call ignite the light, mean do something with it. What are you going to do? You know it, it's there. What are you going to do with it? And we encourage you through coaching, through advisory, through consulting for both people and organizations to find that superpower or that thing that's igniting you and then use it and display it. And we use a framework or methodology called discover, develop, then display it.
Lovely. What brought you to do that? I mean, you said you'd had 30 odd years in corporate. And I love the fact that you focused on doing something, because what I often find is we get this overload, don't we, of psychometric tests, of go to another workshop, but where's the so what from that? So has this come from personal experience or something that you saw was a problem in general?
Yeah. So again, 38 years in corporate America. I've worked for some of the world's largest companies in doing that. Most recently, I was a senior partner at a company, Korn Ferry, which is a leadership development company and one of the top the top global executive search firms. And so I did executive coaching for CEOs and leaders. And the insights are always there and available, particularly at that level. But what are you doing with it? How are you implementing it? And most importantly, this is what I challenge all leaders. And it doesn't matter if you're a CEO or if you're a leader in life, you have to be able to display it to create two words: impact and outcomes for both yourself and others. So impact and outcomes is ultimately what we're looking to make sure when we say do it for impact and outcomes.
I love that. And you also talk about something called super purpose power.
Yeah.
How is that how did that come about? How did you define that? And how can someone begin to recognize their own?
So I'll break it down. So the word super is something that's above and beyond, something that is not normal, something that is, it's at another level. It's beyond the level of the normal. And so everyone has a level beyond anyone else's normal. So, we always, I'll take the biblical term, we're marvelously and uniquely made. So each
Mm.
of us has a unique gifting or something super that's in us. Your purpose, everyone has a purpose. Everyone, if you know it or if you don't, you were born and you were made with something, number one, super, something beyond the normal. And then also that you can have a gift or something that is a gift to the world. So that's the super purpose. The power is it can create the impact. Here's these two words again. The power is it can be done to create something that is beyond, like, if without you, it wouldn't get done. So it's an
Mhm.
impact and an outcome. So that's the power. So the super purpose power is we want you to activate that thing, that special thing that's in you so that you can bring out your purpose. And by the way, when you're operating in your purpose, your level of self satisfaction is off the charts. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're getting paid or not, although we want to. When you're operating in your purpose, there's a level of satisfaction that goes beyond happy. And then the power is making sure that you leave a legacy. You kind of have that aroma after you leave the room. There's something that's still there, and that's the power that you leave.
I love that. And the work that you do kind of blends the personal growth with the executive leadership. But
Yes.
do you often find people have that conflict between what they feel is their personal purpose and maybe the organization's success and how that all intersects together?
Well, I just talked about because recently leaving a corporate job, a pretty successful career. One of the things that I was experiencing when I was having conversations is when I was talking about professional development, leadership development on the professional sense, the conversations they typically they started spilling over into, yeah, but I do this for part of who I am in the day. There's another part of who I am in the day. And so I started having a lot of like personal conversations, like beyond the role, and I talk about rise to the role in the book, of course, but your role is not just defined by the job, it's defined by your life's mission. And so I broke it down, 6 elements: faith, family, your fitness, your finances, how you have fun, and then ultimately the field. And the field is the job. And so what I
Mhm.
do is a very holistic approach. And we don't necessarily talk about, like, what are your priorities, right? So you can pick one: faith, family, fitness, fun, finance, field. Which one of these are a priority for you? And that opens the door to have a holistic conversation about, one day we'll talk about the field. One day we'll talk about your fitness. You and I were talking about, walking the dog, right? One day we may talk about what's going on in the family and how can you balance that.
I love the simplicity of the breaking down. Also, a bit of alliteration always goes a long way. How have you seen, or can you share an example where a leader's transformation has had that cascading impact because they've done that whole holistic approach?
Yeah. So working with the CEO for a nonprofit organization, it's a global nonprofit organization. And so the transformation was I was engaged from the board to go in and to work with the CEO about how he shows up, not only how he shows up internally, but how he shows up, in terms of his presentation style. So that seems like a pretty clear cut mission, right? So what we wanted to talk about is not necessarily the moments of showing up, because I always define moments as you have to see the moment, you have to honor the moment, and then you master the moment. And part of mastering moments is actually kind of peeling back the onion and getting behind what was the intent leading up to it? What was your preparation leading up to it? How did you physically feel going in there? And so we talked about like the moments of how you display from discover, develop, display, how you display yourself. But we said, let's take a step back. How do you prepare for that? And it goes back to sleep patterns. Did you get enough sleep?
Mhm.
It goes back to prioritization. How did you prioritize for when you're going out and you're talking about, the influence of being a CEO and leading others? We talked about how you feel like, you have that balance so that you're able to take in the moment, prioritized opportunities and work your way into whatever the issue may be. And so we take a very holistic approach. And what we did with the CEO is we said, let's talk about your fitness. And it's interesting that you talk about how an executive shows up and his fitness level. We
Mm.
found out that the way his eating patterns were, what he was consuming, and what his movement and activities were directly affecting how he showed up. So we worked on that, and that created a better outcome. And it worked.
I mean, again, I love this. I was in the army, and so I
Yes.
found since I've left, like the lack of movement in my life was a big thing, and I had to consciously reintegrate it into my life because I performed better when I was fit, when I was healthy, when I was moving more. But I think it's something that I love it's part of your framework because
Yeah.
it does get overlooked, particularly at the executive level. And I know I'm guilty of working in my corporate life of, when I've done 12, 14, 16, 20-hour days and I've not moved from my desk. And
Yes.
that's just horrendous. It's not good for anybody in any circumstance. But there is a culture behind it, isn't it? Do you see that resistance come in when you kind of go, look, actually, you've got to move, you've got to take the dog out for a walk, you've got to, you know, get that movement going. How does that get received by people?
So I use these two words, practical and intentional.
Hmm.
Being practical is, yeah, there have been reports about, how Jamie Dimon, who is the leader, the CEO, the global vice president of JP Morgan, he starts the day by exercising, right? But we,
Hmm.
we can't have that. We don't all have that practical schedule where our schedule in many cases belongs to, it is ours, but it belongs to others, the stakeholders in our lives.
Yeah.
So practical means you have to be, and intentional means you have to create moments. Here, I'll use that word again, moments where you're intentional about, I can relate 20 hours a day. I'll use myself as an example. So yeah, I mean, 16 hours, 14, 16, 18 hours, but I am absolutely resolute in making sure that even if I have to on my phone, is very practical, set a timer and that timer goes off. And uh, similar to a Pavlovian response, call and response, I will get up and I will be intentional about walking to the other side of the room, the building, taking a walk outside and leaving it for at least 5 minutes. And I will
Mm.
do that as a practical, intentional pattern. So a PIP, so that it enables me to create that specific movement in that time.
And again, that's not a big thing when you break it down, a 5 minute leg stretch. Um, and studies have shown that, even 5 minutes makes difference. I think what I love about the work you're doing is it does make it into these tangible chunks. As opposed to the overwhelming, you should get up at 5 a.m. and join the 5 a.m. club and be all things to all people, which is just not sustainable or fair on anybody, unless you have a butler and a chef and a maid and everything else that some people are lucky to have, and that's great. But most of us don't. So
We
so
don't.
5 minute movings is a more practical thing.
Yeah, the practical intentional practice, the PIP, which by the way, I just made that term up, so I think I'll use that. So, but I use practical intentional, but not practice. But so here's one, and you and I talked about it. It's walking. I call it walking Nico, right? And so those are my innovation sessions. when I'm out walking him, and he's a little 18-pound white Bichon, he's a little fluffy. And so I'm known around the neighborhood as Nico's dad. They don't know me as Randall. They know me as Nico's dad because I'm always
I,
out walking Nico. Now, here's the thing. I am out walking Nico, but I am absolutely still on and still being very useful in the work that I'm doing. I just happen to be walking and innovating at the same time. I can be innovating by internally thinking of something, thinking of a vision, thinking of a strategy, thinking of a plan. Because as leaders, we always have to think ahead. Or I take calls, and I intentionally take calls this is a very practical practice. I intentionally take calls when I know I'll be out walking with him so that, and I use the appropriate headsets and all of that stuff. But these are ways that we can kind of blend in both.
again, firstly, as a fellow dog owner, I know the names of all the dogs and not the owners. It's just a thing, isn't it? You're like, hi, Barry. Hi, Larry. Who are you? Oh, yeah, you're the owner.
Yeah.
I think it's a healthy response. I think again, it's helping people to realize that one, it's good to have these intentional moments.
Yes.
For me, dog walking is the same thing. It's quite a mindful thing. I live in a forest, so I go outdoors and I've got trees everywhere and there's animals. But I'll do the same as you. I will take calls. I will try and think things through. And the days I don't do it, I feel the difference. 100%, I feel the difference. But it's so interesting how fast and how quickly habits can develop or not develop. And I think one thing that I've learned is that we develop the wrong habits really easily. They are the ones that just stick. And to do the good stuff, you do have to go through that pain, not pain, but resistance, I would say. Just to set the alarm, be religious to that alarm, and eventually you won't need the alarm, hopefully. But
Yeah.
it's not a natural thing because all the things that gives our brain satisfaction is the bad stuff. It is scrolling on our phones instead of going for a walk. It is watching the next episode of something instead of going up and stretching your legs. And the way you break it down, I think, is manageable for anybody, which is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I use the example of is that not everyone has a dog, not everyone walks a dog, but it can be even, the box breathing method. It can be
Mm.
if you can't get up, if you can't get out, it's just breathe. Intentional. And again, here's where I use this. You apply certain words to activities, the intentional breathing, like the box breathing, just breathe, pause, breathe, pause, breathe, inhale, exhale. And so those are, so that's it's very practical. And I love the word you use, comfort. So comfort is the enemy of progress, in my opinion.
Mm.
And you use resistance rather than pain. I say without pain, there's no growth. And so you
Yeah,
have to get out of the comfort areas in life through discipline in order to grow. I always say the bridge between aspiration and goals is consistency and discipline. So if you create the planks or the bridge with consistent discipline, then the bridge will be built between your aspiration and ultimate goal or results.
absolutely agree. I think the other mistake I see in people is they think motivation will get them there. And it's motivation might get them started, but it's the discipline that will get them finished. And that
Absolutely.
consistency. It's a great lesson to learn. Now, as I said, you've written a book. Is it quite a recent book? I can't remember now.
It is, yes. It's been out
Yeah, it's
just a few short months.
perfect.
It's been trending, and it's a leadership. What I call it's lessons for leaders in life. It's called Rise to the Role. And so what I do is I break down the methodology of how you discover, develop, and display the leader in you by inspiring, and there's inspirational insights, but it also has case studies of both individuals that I've worked with as well as organizations that I've worked with. And so as a part of that, it is, and there's also a lot of fun metaphors. So I talk about the dragons in life and how we face our dragons, we name our dragons, we tame our dragons in life, so that we name it, claim it, and tame it is what I call it. So we talk about that. I talk about different leaders and how they've elevated as a leader in life and how they've gone through painful resistance in order to rise to their role. And the role, I'm very purposeful about, yes, there's corporate roles and leaders, but we all have a role that we can play, and that ties to our purpose. And Talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that.
So two questions. One is, what are some of your dragons? And the second one is, what brought you to write the book? What was the inspiration to do that?
Yeah. So I've been a certified master executive coach for about 20 years. And so I have these collection of stories that I've developed. Also, in doing that, I wanted to share because I can't coach the world. And
Hmm.
so, although I'd love to, I think it's a letter to all of the leaders that I've unfortunately not had the opportunity to work with. And by the way, in addition to the executive coaching, I have two daughters, 24 and 27 years old. And I'm always, as they say, oh, dad, I'm always giving them learning moments. And so I said, listen, not only for the executives, but for all leaders of all ages, because I have quite a few folks who are buying the book for their young adults and even
Mm.
teenagers. And so the inspiration was to get the word out, the letter to leaders. The second thing is I write and I journal. That's part of my therapy. That is like my 4:30 wake up call. And I'm like, that's my prime, so I am part of the 5 o'clock club, but it's my time. And so it
Hmm.
gives me that peace and that quiet when I'm writing. And you know what, Philippa, all of a sudden I looked up and I had 800 pages,
Oh, wow.
800 pages that over the years I've collected. And so here I'm going back, I'm coaching myself. What am I going to do about it?
Mm.
How am I going to create a purpose to have impact and outcomes as my legacy? There's the book.
Love it. And what about your dragons then? What
Yeah,
dragons have
sorry.
you named?
Long-winded way of
Sorry.
saying. So the dragons. So the dragons for me, it's uh, just like I just did. It's I have this vision, and so my mind always thinks about 3, 4, 5 steps ahead. And my dragon is to step back in the moment, be in the moment, honor the moment, and then master the moment versus always thinking the vision
Running
ahead.
ahead.
And so the dragon of the moment and being in the space, that's something that I'm always trying to tame. I know it, I named it, I'm claiming it. I just have to tame it now.
I
Because
love
I'm
that.
always like, that's in front of me, but no, this is what's way ahead. This is what I'm putting my emphasis on. I got to rein it
Mm.
back in.
No, love that. And for someone who's quite, you are very, what's the word? You're very driven. You're very passionate about your work. You're very inspirational. But how do you measure success in your work? Is it through the transformation? Is it something deeper? Do you have a measure that you hold yourself up to?
Yeah, I do. Almost daily, I get people that say, oh my gosh, what can I do for you? This has been so helpful. What you've given me, if it's inspiration, if it's data, it's insights, if it's a plan, what can I do? So for me, my response is, I want you to rise up and win. So here's the rise, and that's part of the reason why I made that rise to the role. Rising, a rising tide raises all ships. So if I surround myself with winners and people who are absolutely killing it in life, I can't help but to be raised up myself. I
Mm.
create by doing that, I create a ecosystem around me where not everything is in sunshine and lollipops, but if I can have that as the majority around me, then it makes me a positive person because I'm living in a positive environment and my life, it's good. The motivator
Mm.
for money, again, I have two daughters. Both of them live in New York City, one of the most expensive cities in the world. So it's important, but is not a driver. Being and living a fulfilled life for me, that's the driving factor. That means I call this, I earn my sleep at night when I'm feeling
Mm.
fulfilled about what I did in the day.
I love that. Um, and I think, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? That if you're feeling fulfilled, it doesn't feel like work, and that money doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I think, money does matter, but the threshold is different for each person, right? So, but there's not one figure that we all have in our minds to be successful financially. And from the people I've worked with, I've seen people leave very successful corporate careers to take a pay cut to have a better quality of life that they've earned their sleep for. Well, what I will say, and you'll know this, is it takes a lot of guts because again, it's going through that pain. You have to leave that comfort zone of a regular paycheck, a regular schedule to the uncertainty. And it's not for everybody, but at least there are organizations like yours which can help people on that journey should it be required.
Yeah, it's courageous faith, quite honestly, because I didn't mention this, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So I'm also an active pastor, and I've been a pastor for the last 20 years. And so it's operating in faith. And so one of the things that I did, it's not only it's courageous, active faith, right?
Mm.
It's the application of faith. The definition of faith is the substance of things unknown and not seen. So it takes courage to which I did, leave a corporate environment to start your own. Because when you're starting your own, it's unknown. And so
Hmm.
operating that, I said, I preach it, I teach it, but I now operate it and apply that faith for me. And so I've done it. And so far, so good.
Well, it's looking very strong from where I'm looking at it. But what sort of legacy are you looking to leave with this work, though? Have you got that in mind as well?
Yeah, interesting. I just had a conversation with my 27-year-old daughter, and we were talking about legacy yesterday. Legacy is very important to me. And so I said, with Inspirit Institute, with this hub, we have an active website where people can go on and do a self-paced leadership design program. We have an app where they can do the same thing. There's the book. Another book is coming. I have speaking engagements. And so I'm leaving all of this as opportunities for people to, be the best version of themselves by discovering their super purpose power. I said, so if I can, at the end of the day, and this is what I challenge people, here's my legacy. Write your own write your own eulogy. And what would people say? And then ask someone else who's close to you, write your eulogy. What would they say about you? And so the legacy I want to leave is that I have created inspired insights, because that's how I've packaged it, for everyone that I've come in contact with. So,
Mm.
if I can, through Philippa, our conversation, create an inspired insight for you that can help you kind of tap into that inner better self, that's the legacy I want to leave. Because when I'm gone, I don't want them to talk about me. I want them to talk about the impact that I had.
And the way you make people feel rather than some of the
That,
actions,
that's
that
what my
that
10-year-old
emotional.
daughter said. I'm an inspirer.
Oh,
So.
she was not wrong. Have you ever, talking about inspiration on the other side of it for a moment, is there ever been a moment in your life that you've kind of gone, I did exactly the polar opposite of that. I didn't inspire, or I could have done it differently. Have you ever had that turning point in yourself where you've gone, I need to be different to become who that purpose is? Did that happen for you, or was that just a slow progression over time?
Yeah. So let me say, I am the amalgamation or the accumulation of my failures. So I am a ready, shoot, aim type of person. So I have evolved by just trying out a bunch of different things.
Hmm.
And so as to that point, I came to a self-actualized self by exploring a whole bunch of things. So, I've run marathons, I've done triathlons, I've done sprints as far as activities, physical. I'm a pastor. I'm a corporate executive. So I've tried all of these things. And so here's my progressive self-discovery. It came to a point, and I always assess myself, and I'm always doing a um, informal assessment of people. What do you think of me? my wife is the truth teller. Always get truth tellers in your life. And I've been married 30 years, so she's been telling me the truth for a very long time. But it is a progression. But here's the pivot point is where I said, I have a core theme of who I am. And I go back to describing Inspirit, Inspire, RIT, Institute. That's the core theme of who I am. I help to improve people and organizations' lives by igniting them. So there you go.
Wonderful. I love that. Thank you. And I also love the honesty about failure because I mean, I think it's more commonly spoken about now. There's another podcast I really love, which is How to Fail Well. It's
Yes.
a British one. And I think it's really important that we recognize that life is not linear. And I certainly could not have planned my life the way it is. But like you, I said yes to a bunch of things. I gave it a go. Some I was all right at, some I was terrible at. But it helped me to understand who I am. And I joke that every decade I change careers. I'm now in my 40s onto my fourth career, you know. For me, that's the joy of life, is having these opportunities to try, to learn, to fail or not, but often to fail. But do you see people holding back because of that fear of failure in what you do?
Yes. So I'll use an analogy of a nice, comfortable chair or a sofa. You know, you get to the point where, and again, say comfort is the enemy of growth and success, where you have a chair that's actually, it's so comfortable that it creates an imprint of you, of your body, of your contour. The thing about that comfortable chair is it does not support you because it
Mm,
caved in to your body or your contour versus something that offers support. So I use that analogy and I say this: if in life you stay in your comfortable chair, you will never get the support, the pain, or resistance that you need to grow, because people who are afraid to have resistance and face pain, they will avoid losing. But if you have the
mm,
opportunity to say it's not a loss, it's a learning. So let me go out and do a self discovery. I may lose, but I learned. So I really didn't lose.
mm.
And so I try to encourage people to go out there. And then here's another point that I say: jump until you figure out, and you'll fall when you jump, but you'll figure out when you fall that you have wings to fly. So here's the point: fall until you fly, because those wings are there, but you'll never know that they're there until you jump and start falling.
I love that. Thank you. Randall, it's been wonderful. How can people work with you, find you, buy your book if they are hopefully suitably inspired, which I'm sure they will be after this conversation?
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunities. So the book Rise to the Role, RISE, Rise to the Role, is on Amazon and all of the book outlets. So if you do that, go on Rise to the Role or Randall Thames. You'll find that on Amazon, and also our website, Inspirit Institute, your spirit, inspiritinstitute.com. The website will take you to all of the different socials. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, we're on YouTube, where, I'll share some of stories that we've just talked about. So all of those social channels, In Spirit Institute, on all of the social channels, you can get a hold of me.
Amazing. Thank you. I'll put it all in the show notes as well so people can find it there. Thank
Yes.
you. It's been wonderful. I wish you well on your journey and your institute, and I look forward to seeing the next book and what else comes out from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippa. Thank you so much. Again, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.